All right, so now it's time to go global and see what's happening at the moment for the early hours of Tuesday. And we're starting first, especially with the markets. With the European markets, we see that the European markets, not just European markets, also the Asian markets, they're trending lower. It was a negative close for most of the Asian markets, but then a negative opening for European markets. As you can see there, that most of the investors, they're kind of wary about US President Donald Trump, who has been dominating the news across the world, market-wise, politics-wise, and others. So, and it also has to do with the US and Iran's peace proposal. So for the pan-European stocks 600, which is more like the benchmark for all the European stock bourses there, they opened lower, about 1% lower after trading began. As this is also correlates with the oil prices, which ticked higher in early deal making. For the UK FTSE was down by 0.1% at 8 a.m. London time. For Germany's DAX, it was down by 0.2%, while France's CAC was down by 0.3%. So for the rest of the day, the markets will also be assessing news that Donald Trump and his national security team will discuss Iran's proposal to reopen the Strait of Hormuz if the U.S. lifts the blockade and the war ends. That's according to White House Secretary Caroline Leavitt, who made that confirmation on Monday. So from there, we move over to yesterday. We talked about the Bank of Japan, as well as other major global markets, global central banks holding their policy rates decision. Now, at the end of the two-day policy meeting, the Bank of Japan, one of the world's biggest central banks, decided to hold its key policy rate steady at 0.75%. Now, the impact of that reflected on the yen, which rose, but then on the reverse, the Bitcoin, that's the benchmark or the world's largest cryptocurrency, it fell. This is no thanks to the BOJ's announcements of keeping its rate all steady. Now, all eyes are turned to the U.S. Federal Reserve's meeting. It begins today, but the outcome would be made tomorrow. So now the market's expecting that the U.S. Federal Reserve will keep its key benchmark interest rate within the range of 3.50 to 3.7%. So we'll look out for that for Wednesday's trading session. And from there, we move over to one of the company news. BP, that's British energy giant, is reporting a better than expected beating forecast for its Q1 profits. It came in at about $3 billion within the first 3 months of the year. That's between January and March. And that's up against the $1.38 billion which was reported in the same period of last year. So it's, and this is largely driven by the Iran war, which drove up the oil prices there. Remember, sometime last year, we also talked about oil windfall and the impacts of higher oil prices on companies like this. So BP is one of them, and it's also coming, which is the very first result under the new chief executive Meg O'Neill, who took over at the beginning of April when her predecessor Murray Auchincloss left after just about less than 2 years in the role. So that impact we see positive news for the British energy giant. And now another British energy giant, and this time is Shell, which has agreed to buy Canadian shell producer ARC Resources for about $16.4 billion. So this is coming as the move marks a major bolstering in its operations across North America after Shell had sold its shale business in the Permian Basin in Texas to ConocoPhillips. That was back in 2021, and that deal was consummated at about $9.5 billion. So from Shell, we move over to the UK, where we see that UK shops, the retailers, the retail price have fallen from 1.2% to 1%. That's according to latest information from the British Retail Consortium, BRC. So they confirmed that this is the softest pace of increase since late 2025, and it comes as the retailers applied heavy discounting to goods such as clothing and furniture, and that's in a bid to bring in more customers because they need more money. So obviously they just had to do that heavy discount and make sure that the retailers get a good bargain for their money. And from the UK, we move over to Spain, which the jobless rate has increased for the most since the pandemic. New data from the official data shows that the country's unemployment rate climbed from 9.93% to 10.83% within the first quarter, and this is coming as the number of the unemployed there rose by about 231,500, bringing the total number of unemployed there to about 2.7 million. So unemployment is a global phenomenon, is a global trend. So not just Nigeria, but of course Nigeria's case is just leaves one to desire. So, and from Spain we move over to China, which has blocked Meta, that's the parent company of Facebook and also a tech giant. So China has blocked Meta's $2 billion takeover of a startup company, Manus. That company it has its roots in Singapore, but was founded in China before relocating to Singapore. So the deal had already attracted scrutiny from both China and Washington, as lawmakers in the U.S. Prohibited American investors from backing Chinese AI companies directly. So that is one of the security reasons. But this time, China is doing a sort of a tit-for-tat, blocking a U.S. company from acquiring one of its AI startup company in the name Manus. So that's it for Global News for Tuesday. We'll look out for how it turns out on Wednesday.